So Will did a really great thing a couple weeks ago. He came to us a while back and said, I've been looking at all the neat things that I've done, and putting the book together kind of reminded him of a lot of. He was directly or indirectly involved in some really amazing things in NASCAR racing, and some amazing builds like this thing. And it got him thinking. He didn't do it all himself. He had an amazing crew of guys. So he went through the trouble of tracking all those guys down, setting up a big lunch. We were simply invited to watch and hang out. Will set the whole deal up, got the guys there. We did drag the Atlanta car down.
Yep.
And
they
put
were
it
surprised.
At
They
the
were
old
very
shop.
surprised.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
And you guys will see some footage of that in and out of this. There was just a neat batch of guys. Super cool.
Yep. Jack Campbell was the jack man.
Mm-hmm.
Keith Wilson was the rear tire changer. I changed the front tires. Matt Craig was a gas can catcher.
Mm-hmm.
Vaughn Dunn was a tire carrier, and Loxley Alberga from Jamaica was the jack man. We've talked about this. One of the reasons you're helping me with this is to replicate the picture we took at Talladega.
Yes.
We have a picture at Talladega with this car with the 6 of us behind that.
Yep.
I've located all those guys. We had T-shirts made for the White Crown Engineering. Those T-shirts were the T-shirts that we made while we were working on Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s car.
Wow.
Because the picture that I had of those T-shirts in the background is the truck that we bought from Huggins Tire to make into a race truck. And it had got painted by my friend in Pennsylvania, Greg Heller.
Yep.
And I know that picture was within 1 week, either before or after we took Dale to Daytona for the Firecracker 400.
Yeah.
I'm convinced that's what got him noticed. We ran particularly well at the Daytona 500 in 1978.
Well, that's one of the things, like I mentioned earlier, you indirectly or directly were involved in so many amazing things. The start of Mark Martin's career, the start of Dale Earnhardt's career, the work you did with Donnie, the Indy
Rudge
cars.
Crew Chief.
Yeah.
Erie won Rookie of the Year in 77.
Yep, exactly. I mean, that's, you've touched a lot of...
Well, you and I have talked about this, but you and I are both gaining some notoriety. I'm convinced based on the time that we spent in NASCAR. The time we spent in NASCAR exactly overlaps the time that Winston cigarette people were sponsoring the series.
And the growth was exponential.
And I think that was NASCAR's golden era, and you and I both happen to just be participating in that particular area. And I think that's what's made the book do well. Not that I'm a great writer, but the time period about which I write seems to be the most popular.
Well, I commonly tell people I wish I'd have come along 20 years earlier, because I love what you guys did. I love the ingenuity, the builds, nowadays you go to work for a NASCAR team, and it's a good gig. You work your hours, you go to your races. In his era, it was a lifestyle, because you worked 18 hours a day. When I got into NASCAR in the mid 90s, there were still a lot of teams where we worked 18, 20 hours a day, and you blew a motor up and somebody jumped in the truck when you got back to the shop on Sunday. It was a Busch Series at the time. You get back to the shop on Sunday morning, you pull the motor out, and somebody jump in a truck and drive to damn Vermont to switch motors out, because you needed that thing back done by Tuesday evening to get loaded in the truck, and it's just what we did, and it was a lifestyle back then. It was so much more than a job. Those guys loved it, they lived it, they did it. There was, for as much as you worked, there wasn't near as much complaining as there is nowadays.
No, not near as much. I can remember when I was writing the first book. There was a time period. There was 13 years and 7 months that I worked without a day off.
Yep.
The lifestyle, I guess you said that.
It was.
I don't remember complaining about anything. I mean,
you just did it.
You just One of the things I remembered for writing the book, I remember a number of occasions where I ate breakfast 3 times in the same set of clothes
Yeah. Yes. Yes. When I was
at the
working,
Waffle House.
Yep. When I was working for one of the teams, and I won't say who at this point, I remember that when I learned by the 3rd night of no sleep, you start feeling sick to your stomach. And if you can get through that couple hours spell of not feeling good, you're golden. We used to love going to the racetrack because they threw you out of the garage at 5 o'clock.
Yes, sir. It was like a day off.
Yeah, you had to go home or back to the hotel.
Yeah.
When you call the hotel home, you've been on the road too much. You had to go back to the hotel at 5 o'clock. NASCAR was gonna throw you out, so it was like hot diggity. We don't have to work till 10 o'clock tonight. We're gonna be out of here, find some dinner, get a good night's sleep, and that was
The first thing we did after we cleaned up to eat dinner was to flip a coin to see which 2 guys slept on the box springs, which 2 guys slept on the mattress, and who had to sleep on the floor.
So we did that at Richmond once. We got there was a rainstorm came through Richmond. They moved the Busch race at the time to Monday. We didn't have hotel rooms with the team, so they had to get a hotel room for another night. And I remember they put 8 guys in one hotel room. It was 2 box spring, 2 mattress, 2 box spring, 2 mattress. And my good friend said, he was from England. He said, and I quote, "We're going to have to start the parade at 4 o'clock in the morning, or we're not going to make it to the track on time."
Oh, the restrooms
Yeah.
were terrible in them days. The floor was always wet, and you never knew just exactly where the
Yeah, don't hang your
moisture
towel
came
up.
from.
Take it to bed with you because somebody might use it. Yep. Hide your towel. So,
Oh yeah,
but
those are funny now.
but we did it over and over again. And
Everybody did it.
Yeah,
Everybody did
it
it.
was great. And like I said, I still like what NASCAR is. I still enjoy watching the races. I was at Richmond this weekend with NASCAR and Toyota, and I still enjoy it. But there was just something really special about that time frame, your time frame, 70s and 80s, and it was harder and it was more work but it just seemed to be, I don't know. I hate to say more fun, but
It was.
It was.
In hindsight, I clearly remember the enjoyable times. I can remember when we were in Daytona. I can remember I always would go. It seemed like I always hit Jacksonville, Florida, just as the sun came up. I mean, wherever we were, by the time we got to Jacksonville, the sun was coming up.
And that's a pretty ride across that bridge when the sun's coming up. Because
Yes,
I know
sir.
exactly what you're
Yes,
talking
sir.
about.
Yes, sir.
Because I've done that.
Well,
Yep.
the trucking part was as fun as well. When we'd race at Dover, I had an 18-wheeler, and that's what trying to replicate some drawings for. That's what made me think about forming that reunion
With the
a couple
crew.
of weeks
Yep.
ago. I couldn't have done that without those guys. They were a lifesaver. They were the lifeblood of White Crown Engineering, and each of those 5 guys was with me probably 8 to 10 years. It was a really good group, and you've met them. They were really nice.
They are.
We had this tractor trailer, and I think the 3rd race we went to was at Dover, and I learned Henry Benfield was a cohort of mine, a guider in driving them big trucks. But we'd have to leave Dover and drive through Amish country, and so you're driving really, really slow. So it seemed like everybody stacked up, and then when they hit the highway, where would we be going to? Virginia, the bridge. Chesapeake Bay Bridge.
Yes.
Was that the trucks would all get in, and Henry he said, "Don't you pull over for nothing or nobody." I didn't know what he was talking about, but we get out there and they're all going faster than the speed limit. So I was last, and a highway patrolman come and turned the light on, and Henry saw. They said, "Don't stop, don't stop," and I didn't. So the highway patrolman moved up to the next truck, flashed his lights. Nothing happened. After a couple of years of that, I can remember about where you cross over the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, there was 2 highway patrolmen there just waving at us as we went by. They weren't worried about stopping us. And we used to race. We used to race the trucks you talking about being at Richmond. We'd go to Richmond with a short track car, and if you swapped cars, your team would bring the other car there, and then the 2 guys that were driving the trucks would each put up $50 and give it to the flagman, because he flew. And this is when we were going to Ontario, California. So, and then we'd race the trucks, and the first truck there, the flagman would be at the racetrack, and the first truck there got all the money.
Oh my gosh.
And Henry Benfield, he and I were hard at it. Douglas and Sons gave me a really nice truck to pull my trailer with. And we started off and I could see Henry and I could hear Henry on the CB radio, and after a while we got about to Texas and I couldn't talk to him, but I could talk to truckers coming. And we get there and I pull up and I knock on the door and he opens the door like he's been sleeping for 2 hours. And I said, congratulations, you won. He says, well, what took you so long? And I said, I ain't been here too long. I could hear the radiator still gurgling in his truck. He hadn't been there. He hadn't been there more than 20 minutes.
You mentioned Douglas and Sons. A lot of people don't know how much they help racers throughout the years.
A bunch of us.
I mean, a bunch. That's an amazing group of people who have never gotten any, notoriety. But maybe they didn't want it. But Douglas and Sons helped tons of racers with tractors or drivers or both or whatever. And I think I remember the first year I was at Ricky Craven's, we got a Douglas and Son driver every time we went to the racetrack, and just super great people.
Still in business,
and just in that time frame where you didn't have 30 guys in the shop or 20 guys in the shop, you needed that little extra help. They were always on board to help you.
Butch was the main guy that I'd talk to. His brother Peanut was in charge of the maintenance work on the trucks. But they built an independent front suspension, one of them bobtail trucks when they were racing.
Oh, wow.
And they had me come up and we laid out all that front suspension stuff. We laid it out full size with chalk on the floor and modified the stuff. And that track ran so good, that truck ran so well. I think after 4 races, they told him to keep that thing at home.
Really?
Yeah, he still got it. I talked to him here maybe less than a year ago, and it's still there. It's got my little WC on the corner post of their truck.
There's a cool antique.
They treated me good.
There's a cool antique truck show that happens in Lincoln in the fall, and we might have to get up with them to bring that thing down there.
They do it because he said it's stored someplace. He knew where it was, offered for me to go up there and look at it.
Oh, wow.
They treated me good. One of the stories in my books about that, how they got through. I guess if I could write about it, I can tell you about it. they had some hard water behind the desk and behind the couch in one of the bedrooms, and apparently I don't know nothing else about that. I don't know how much of that might be
hard water. Hard water comes from the moon, doesn't it?
Yeah. We're up at the far end of some.
Yeah. That's cool.
What do they call that hill up in a? What do they call that when you're up in the mountains? Holler.
The hollers, yeah. Yep. Hollers are usually by good creeks.
Yeah.
Yep. So, did you guys run this after Talladega, or did you sell it?
Oh, I think we ran it maybe the next Daytona race.
Okay.
But he bought that. Man, I apologize. I can't remember his name, but he bought that at an auction. And I don't know how it got to the auction. One car, I guess, I had one guy kind of did me bad. I did a car for him and he didn't pick it up. It was stored outside because I didn't have room. We ended up, I said, would you come get your car? Mm-hmm. He didn't want to do it, so somehow I got a hold of Tom Pistone. And he took it to his place in North Carolina to store it. And then this gentleman wanted that car back, so he came to me. I told him, no, it's been in storage at Tom Pistone's. Nobody charged me, so I don't know if is there any charge for it. But that gentleman owed Tom Pistone money, so Tom Pistone
held the car.
Wouldn't give him the car, and that guy took me to court, and I had to give him one of my cars. I'm certain it wasn't this one, but I didn't have many cars. I didn't like giving one up. But
man, well, that's tough for a small team.
Well, it's tough for us. I've in doing some research for this other book. I don't know the right word. Surprised. I don't want to use the word impressed. How many different things we did do. Yeah. I'm a little surprised how many different kind of cars that I've worked on. Mm-hmm. Started out with an old go-kart. Old man got mad. My dad got mad because I kept tearing up the front yard.
Then it's time to go to the racetrack.
Well, he did. He says, take it over there to the track. Then I found out they race. Really? It was all over. I started out with a West Bend motor. They're two-stroke. And I found out, you could advance the timing by going in and grinding the top of the ports. Well, I left those alone and took two pieces of electrical conduit, drilled holes in the crankcase and in the head, and put 2 extra ports and put them like 40 thousandths higher than the other ones. And I won the Ohio State Championship in that go-kart, and from here to that car, from the finish line, that motor blew up. It chewed up my arm. The biggest piece of that motor was the spark plug.
Wow.
It blew the crap out of that thing. I was in the go-karts pretty good. I had a go-kart. I had a 250cc TDY 1A Yamaha motorcycle engine on it. Mm-hmm. With go-kart tires, you could put it in third gear and smoke the tires till you let off of it.
That's fantastic.
You've got a.
I do have
you
pictures.
have that.
I do
you have that
pictures.
trophy.
Yeah,
you have that
pictures
trophy.
of it with the trophies. Yep.
Man, that would have been 19. Holy crap! Before 67 or 68.
Yep.
Did they have rubber tires back then?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So well, that's cool. Well, so after your meeting with the crew guys, when you pulled them all together, we went to the old shop, got to see the old building again, the original White Crown Engineering. What feedback have you heard from those guys? From what I saw, they all had a great time.
3 of them, they're not engineer type folks, but 3 of them have emailed me profusely thanking you and I for allowing them to relive some of those things.
You could so you could tell, like, when they all first got there, everybody was kind of like not sure
what this was about.
Yes, and then once they started opening up and telling stories, the stories were great.
Yeah, there were stories I hadn't heard before.
Oh my gosh, it's one of those things where I try to tell people that there's so many amazing crew member, team member stories that you hear in little deals on the side here and there, but if somebody would just, that's one of the reasons why we do this, get that information on film, have it forever, because there's the story that's in the books you get from NASCAR. And that's the who won and who finished and lead lap, blah, 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 wins and stats, and that's great. But there's that whole, I hate to call it the underworld, but it was the
appropriate
life.
Statement.
Yeah, it was the life that you lived when you made this your world.
One of the things that I enjoy about you allowing me to come up here and spend time with you and your guys was evident at that, I guess we called it a reunion, was we could talk about stuff and we could say 3 or 4 words and we knew the rest of the sentence. We remember the time and the date. Yeah. But if we go to someplace now where somebody that's not been to a stock car race, we tell them stories, they think we're lying, we're exaggerating. Yeah. You didn't do that. I first went to work for Benny Parsons. I got paid $100 cash a week. Many weeks I worked more than 100 hours. So my poor old mom. Well, she. So
the first NASCAR Busch team I went to work for in Greenville, South Carolina, I got $150 a week cash for the first 2 years. I got pneumonia real bad. I damn near starved to death. I had a $2 a day food budget. Worked, 100 hours a week. But it was the greatest thing for me at that time because I learned from the beginning. If I work 160 hours a week, I learned way more this week than you did if you only work 40 or 50. And that's how that organization was. Not many employees. You got to do a little bit of everything. Hey, you need to do this. Well, I don't know how to do that. Okay, well, we're going to show you real quick, and then you're going to do it.
Here's how you get started.
Yeah, trial by fire. And I had a little trick back then when I wasn't making any money. Burger King used to have a 99-cent sausage biscuit. So once a week, I would go to Burger King. Don't go through the drive-thru. Because you can't do it anymore because they don't put the condiments out on a counter. Yeah. Probably because of me. I used to go into Burger King once a week, get a 99-cent sausage biscuit, take my little biscuit in the bag over to the condiment stand, and I would fill that bag full of mustard, ketchup, jelly, sporks, napkins, and in my little apartment there in Greenville, where I had one pot, one pan, and a refrigerator, my whole silverware drawer was full of everything from Burger King. So I had silverware and you can only eat ramen noodles so many ways before you
Oh
got to
my.
find some different
Oh
sauce
my.
to put on them.
Oh my.
So yeah, it was exactly what I needed at the time. Learn how to live on a budget, learn everything as quickly as I could.
Yeah.
And so I get that. I understand that.
You don't really have budgets when you're racing. You just spend every dime you got.
Yeah.
and see what.
And live on the leftovers.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I had a customer one time that put me in about as tight a spot as I've ever been. I had a deal where if you wanted to rent my car, there would be a price, but you had to set a certain amount of money aside in a separate joint account in case you crashed it. There was money to fix it. He crashed it, and we spent that money, but he didn't reimburse me for that. We went to a race in Texas. So he owed me for the race in Texas. He owed me for the crash repair
For the
last time, and he didn't have one this time. I'll never do that again. And he crashed that car going into turn one. He crawled over the wall, crawled over the fence. Never seen him since.
You are kidding.
So I had to use a credit card to get home on that. That's as tight as it's been. And there were times when my guys, and I don't ever remember even being mad about it, but there were plenty of times where I'd write paychecks on Friday, and I'd go up to my mobile home and eat beanies and weenies and crackers because
Yep.
I didn't have money for,
Yep.
open up I never drank. Thank goodness I never drank. But I'd open up my door and there'd be a bottle of water and maybe 2 Cokes or something. And I learned many ways to cook bologna back in them
Yep.
days.
That was
I
me
still
with-
like fried bologna.
Yep.
And anything from the Waffle House. Anybody that reads a book thinks that the Waffle House should sponsor me. I didn't realize I do. I eat at the Waffle House.
But you know what? Because it's always the same everywhere you go. It's relatively good food, and it's just it's.
I was single for the biggest part of my early part of my racing career, so I could go to a Waffle House and I could get home whatever I wanted wherever I was at. Except Michigan, they don't have any in Michigan. I don't know why that is.
They got Tim Hortons though.
Yeah, I've eaten
That
that too.
Canadian influence.
Yeah.
But that's cool. If you haven't read the book, we highly recommend you get his book. It is full of great stories, and yes, they all happened. It's well worth the read. It really is.
I was a NASCAR redneck.
Yeah. Yep. You can go to his website.
And I
get it.
was.
Yeah.